Hare Krishna. On page number 1, there is some introduction prayers to the great teachers that I'll recite now. Om Agyana Timirandasya Ganajana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapaitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurung Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vidham Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Svirangshcha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanang Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we'll begin on chapter 2, text number 1. Page number page number 71. Sanjaya Uvacha Tang Tata Kripaya Vishtam Ashu Purna Kulekshanam Vishirantam Idam Vakyam Uvacha Madhusudanaha. Translation on page 72. Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion and very sorrowful, his eyes brimming with tears, Madhusudana, Krishna, spoke the following words. Purport. Material compassion, lamentation, and tears are all signs of ignorance of the real self. Compassion for the eternal soul is self-realization. The word Madhusudana is significant in this verse. Lord Krishna killed the demon Madhu, and now Arjuna wanted Krishna to kill the demon of misunderstanding that had overtaken him in the discharge of his duty. No one knows where compassion should be applied. Compassion for the dress of a drowning man is senseless. A man fallen in the ocean of nescience cannot be saved simply by rescuing his outward dress, the gross material body. One who does not know this and laments for the outward dress is called a Shudra, or one who laments unnecessarily. Arjuna was a Kshatriya, and this conduct was not expected from him. Lord Krishna, however, can dissipate the lamentation of the ignorant man, and for this purpose the Bhagavad Gita was sung by him. This chapter instructs us in self-realization by an analytical study of the material body and the spirit soul, as explained by the Supreme Authority, Lord Sri Krishna. This realization is made possible by working with the fruitive being. situated in the fixed conception of the real self. So just to set a little preface of the scene here, Arjuna is a great warrior and a greatly learned person. He is learned in the holy scriptures, the Vedic knowledge. He was brought up in the Vedic culture by great teachers like grandfather Bhishma. His grandfather was, one of the greatest personalities of all time. He's considered a Mahajana, which means a great soul. And he's one of the 8 Mahajanas that we follow in this practice of Krishna consciousness. So Arjuna is a greatly learned man, and he's put into this position by Krishna for our benefit, because he's a great devotee. So he's always under the protection of Krishna. So we can understand that whatever happens to him is by Krishna's will, Krishna's mercy. So anyways, Arjuna, he doesn't want to fight this battle because, there's his cousins, relatives. He grew up with these people, actually, in the kingdom. He was getting trained in the military arts by with his cousins, alongside his cousins. They were younger, playing around. They used to wrestle each other and play games and everything. And then also his spiritual master, his military teacher, military arts teacher, was on the other side of the battle. And his grandfather was on the other side of the battle. So all these personalities that he really looked up to and appreciated so much. And then what to speak, there's other personalities too. But so he saw all these people and he was overwhelmed with compassion. He was overwhelmed with compassion for their material body. And this is the whole setting of the second chapter. His compassion was misplaced, and Krishna is going to let him know, because Arjuna is going to submit to Krishna's understanding and Krishna's wisdom. So Arjuna provides arguments in the end of the first chapter, and one of his main arguments is that he doesn't want to he doesn't want to fight these personalities, and if he wins and enjoys a kingdom, what's going to be the enjoyment? Because all the people who he would enjoy with a kingdom, great opulences, they'll be gone. So he's thinking of a selfish desire to enjoy, with others. He's thinking of himself. How can I enjoy? If I am with all these, if I have a good company around me, then I'll enjoy better. So he's thinking like that. We also think like that, right? Nobody really wants to be alone doing things, right? Generally speaking, we're social creatures, human beings, so we like to have, associates, we like to have friends we can go out and do things with. And if we're doing it alone, it doesn't have the same concentrated, effort as if we're doing it together. Right? So he was thinking like this. And then he was offering some other arguments, like, if I kill all these persons, then I'll kill off all the elders of all the families, then the elders won't give wisdom to the younger generation, so then the younger generation won't be trained properly in this Vedic knowledge, this Vedic culture, and then they'll fall to degradation. And then the women will fall to degradation because they didn't have this training, and then from degradation of women come so much mixing with men, and then so much unwanted progeny, as he was saying. So in the Vedic conception, actually, at the time of conception of a child, whatever consciousness of the two parents are, whatever their consciousness is, it brings in a child with the similar consciousness. So it attracts a child. So we can see that this is our problem today, that the progeny is actually not, it's coming in very of low quality because of this free, free mixing, this free sex, free, hookups. They're like happening so much. And then children are being born by one night stands and whatever else, So we could see that it's obvious that people aren't interested in self-realization by this point, that the progeny is, we're not attracting qualified souls to come in this world and develop their spirituality. So we shouldn't be surprised that if we walk outside of this building, the many people that we see and we try to talk to them about self-realization or such, they won't be interested, which is generally the case, right, Brian? Brian used to work at Costco, and so he rarely had conversations about relevant topics of self-realization. And if you're going to university, if you start thinking about these things, start practicing meditation, yoga in a serious way, you start to be isolated because everyone else is in the party scene. Everyone else is trying to enjoy their senses till the end. YOLO, you only live once, so enjoy now. So anyways, I just read about this yesterday. It's a side point, but Krishna, in the last text of this chapter, or one of the last texts, so just a little backstory, backing up a little bit, this other side of the battlefield of Arjuna, his cousins, in the Vedic injunctions, there are 6 kinds of aggressors that one can retaliate by getting revenge and killing such persons, and it relieves that person of their sinful reactions of being an aggressor. One of the aggressor is to kidnap one's wife, to set fire to one's house, to steal one's property, to take one's land, usurp one's land. And there's 2 others. And these personalities on the other side of the battlefield, they did all of these things. And so by Shastric injunction, by scriptural injunction, Arjuna can retaliate. He can get revenge. He can kill such aggressors, and he won't incur sinful reactions. So it's obvious, okay, they should be killed because of all these activities that they did, and that will be best for their karma. But Arjuna is a devotee. He's full of compassion. He actually grew up in the forest with sages. So when Arjuna was born, his father Pandu got cursed while he was king, that he couldn't, at the time, basically, it's a long story, but basically he was on a hunting mission. It's accepted that Kshatriyas, the warrior class, can hunt as a matter of practice, martial practice. And so in this hunting excursion, he actually shot a deer that was a yogi that was shape-shifted into a deer so he can enjoy sex life with his counterpart, because they found it degrading just to do it, as humans, openly. So then they took the form of deer. So then he shot this deer at the time he was mating, and so then the sage was extremely angry, and he cursed his Pandu, Arjuna's father, that if he ever tried to mate with his wife, then he would die at that time. So then what to do? You're a king. You're supposed to leave a dynasty. You're supposed to carry on the dynasty by having sons, so then they can be heirs to the throne, and they can carry on. But he couldn't do that because of this curse. So he said, the heck with this, I'm going to go to the forest with my wives. So he took his wives and they went to the forest. And over the course of time, it was found out that one of his wives had the benediction that she can actually call upon a demigod and get a son. So then Arjuna and his brothers came by that. So Arjuna and his brothers, they were born by Kunti, and they were just roaming the forest. It was very peaceful, So their early years were hanging out with sages. They were peaceful, tolerant. They had all these wonderful qualities of brahmanas. And so this was kind of like part of their nature, part of their conditioning as they grew up. And then their father died, and then they had to go back to the kingdom in which their father was ruling, to be watched over or cared for by their uncle. So anyways, my point was that they had they're devotees, so they already have this compassion, this soft-hearted nature in them as devotees of the Lord, but also this background, also that they grew up with sages, and they had this peaceful nature about them growing up. So anyways, so Arjuna is feeling compassion. He doesn't want to fight, even though scripturally he should. And so he's offering these arguments, and a devotee, it's stated that a devotee of the Lord, he doesn't really care what happens to himself. If somebody is even an aggressor like this, doing these very extreme things to harm a innocent person. And so he'll tolerate that, titikshasva, so he's tolerant, and he doesn't care. But if somebody blasphemes or harms another devotee or Krishna, insults Krishna, then he'll be angry, right? But Arjuna, he was thinking like, I don't care what these people did to me. I don't want to fight them, I don't want to kill them, so let them just be. But it's said that the Lord himself, who was the chariot driver of Arjuna, he was with Arjuna. The Lord, he can't tolerate somebody who gives harm or insults or blasphemy his devotee. But also the Lord, he doesn't care about himself, what happens to himself. Someone can blaspheme him and insult him, whatever. But if somebody goes after his devotee, then all hell breaks loose, which is in the case of this, because Krishna wants all these demoniac personalities to be vanquished, because they're wreaking havoc on the earth. They're not actually benefiting the world and benefiting the inhabitants of this universe. So that's sort of an interesting point that I read recently, that this is part of the reason why Krishna is like, no, we got to do this, man. So anyways, so Arjuna is feeling this compassion. Srila Prabhupada says that a man fallen in the ocean of nescience cannot be saved simply by rescuing his outward dress, the gross material body. So generally we have compassion for bodily things. Like if somebody is, and it's not bad, it's good. We naturally will have this, but we also should know who is the person actually and how to benefit the actual person. So if somebody is in distress, emotionally, they're feeling depressed, they're anxious, their life is, we know what this is like in this material world. And we naturally will feel some compassion, like, okay, I want to help, If someone is soft-hearted, they'll want to do that. They want to relieve this person's suffering. Or if somebody is hungry, we generally would like to feed them. If somebody is elderly, we would like to help, them with whatever needs they have. Or the young, we would like to help the young because we can help guide them. But we should know that actually the person itself is not this body. The person is the soul. So along helping the physical needs, and physical desires, then we should also give emphasis to the spiritual need, who the person actually is. So it's like, if somebody is drowning in the ocean, it's not like you're just going to save the shirt, you know. Like, hey, I got the shirt. Yeah, it's okay, I got the shirt. And the guy's like, I'm still drowning. It's okay, I got your shirt, man. So this is kind of how we're like in this material world without this understanding of the spirit. But if you save the man, you know, forget about the clothes. It doesn't matter so much. The man is what's important. So the soul is what is important. So we save the soul, we help the soul, we give compassion to the soul by helping somebody rise to develop their consciousness and help them improve in the path of self-realization. So those are some comments about this. Does anybody have any reflections or comments or questions? Yeah.
So yesterday we had a nice program. I think all of us were there. But I was relating that I had this feeling like, you know, I lost this idea that I was my body or that I was my mind. I was just kind of just totally blissed out. I just forgot that I was embodied. I feel like that was like a little peek into, you know, actually saving the drowning man, you know. And I was kind of wondering, it's like, if we're also drowning, but then we're like, hey man, let me save your shirt. There's another man that's also drowning, and we're trying to save his shirt. And we're like, we get his shirt and we lift it above the water. He's like, hey man, I got you. But we're also drowning. How do we solve this? You know, if I also totally think I'm the body and I'm the mind and I'm in anxiety and I'm having problems that are material and temporary, but they're like really a big deal. I feel like they're really a big deal to me. I can't get over them. You know, how do we, you know, how am I supposed to save that guy?
Well, if you're linked up to the right source, and you may not be pure yet in consciousness, but you know you're getting there by having these experiences and studying, researching these experiences and researching the spiritual path, making sure it's valid and the source is valid, and then persons that are advanced in the path are actually valid, they're actually making progress towards being saved, or they are already saved, then we can help others link up with that. So actually, if we're following persons who are not linked up, I mean persons that are saved already, they're already on the boat, on the rescue boat, then they're extending their hand, and all we have to do is just grab onto it. And grabbing on that hand means following the process, following their instructions. So in one sense, we are saved at that point by following the practice and instructions. Although we're not pure yet in consciousness or free from the bodily designations, but we're protected by Krishna. So then we can liberate others, you know. It's like, you can see it like, you know, you're coming out and he's there with the hand, and so then you can, with your other hand, you can grab someone else, like, okay, yeah. Because the person on the rescue boat, he's also got others on the rescue boat, so they can help him out, you know, lift this chain of persons out of the water. So that's how it is. Yeah. Yeah, Richard?
Well, the classic and most simple and effective way of resolving the difficulty is so profoundly simple and so effective. Humbler than the straw in the street. You just lay down in full prostration and always, always, always chant the holy name. And then all the difficulties will evaporate.
Shai, thank you. Yes, Dr. Brian.
So, I guess I have a question that is very broad but also specific. The purport begins with material compassion, limitation, and tears are all signs of ignorance of the real self. So I guess my question relates specifically to material compassion. So I understand we were discussing the other day, there was an instance that Miguel and I ran into with a gentleman who was looking for some sort of, material compassion, and we discussed that. But I guess deeper than that, how do we reflect on this in our hearts and our minds? When we see people that make choices that hurt themselves directly and immediately, or we have the foresight that they're not acting in their own highest interests, how should we reflect on that person and that decision, as it relates to material compassion?
The unfortunate situation of the souls in this material world is that they're being controlled by the modes of nature. This actually was spoken about in the verse we read this morning. If I can remember it. It's 7:25. It's, I forgot the first line. The first line is, let's see. Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavritaha. What is it? Buddhoyam abhijanati lokoyam lokamam ajam avyayam. So in this text, Krishna says that those who are, those who are foolish or ignorant, less intelligent. What's that there? He is not manifest, for them I am covered by my eternal creative potency, Yogamaya, and so the deluded world knows me not, and am unborn. Actually, I was thinking of the other one. Text 20. Prakritya niyatasvaya. So it says here that in chapter 7, text 20, that there's personalities that are distorted by material desires, so they worship according to their own particular mode of nature. And there's a word here, prakritya niyatasvaya. Niyata means controlled. So I was looking into this word. This means that they're actually controlled by the modes of nature that they're under. So they are forced, controlled to act or to worship according to their modes they're situated in. And so one can see if he is becoming liberated from the modes of nature, or if he is liberated, he can see that it's just an influence of the modes that this particular person is acting this way. And so we have compassion. A sage, he has compassion upon the person who is not acting in his own highest interests and the highest interests of others, because he is under the influence of Maya, of illusory energy of the Lord, this Yoga Maya, creative eternal potency, as it was spoke, Yoga Maya. And so the sage, he knows how to free this person if this person is willing to, if he is wanting to be freed, or if he is able to be freed, then he can provide that. And so he knows he may help materially, but he knows that the real aim is to help this person spiritually, to free him from the modes of nature, so then he can act properly, for his own highest interests and then the highest interest of others. So, I don't know, did that answer?
I guess it relates to, perhaps I framed it poorly, and I'll take the hit. I apologize. But should we feel compassion materially for them, or is that something to be rooted out and refined into exclusively spiritual compassion?
Yeah, well, naturally we'll feel material compassion because we're in the material world, we inhabit these bodies. So we can see this in the case of Srila Prabhupada. When his disciples were sick or physically hurt, he was really meticulous about their condition, particular personalities. And he was, we just heard today, recently, I can't remember where we heard it, but anyways, there was one person, Shama Sundar. He was saying that Prabhupada was so expert and so meticulous about everything that he would say that, oh, that's right, I was watching this trailer. He was saying that Prabhupada, he's a liberated soul, eternally liberated, free from the modes of nature. But one of his disciples, students, daughters got sick, and so then Prabhupada was like, okay, this is what you should do, and he gave some remedy how to cure this. So yes, we're compassionate for the physical things, according to this example, and just naturally, as Arjuna is experiencing material compassion. The material compassion itself isn't faulty, it's just he wasn't willing to do his service. So then that became faulty, So it has its place, but it should be taken a step higher into this, spiritual using spiritual vision. So naturally, in this movement, this Krishna Consciousness movement, we're actually feeling this material compassion for the souls here. So we're doing things like in ISKCON today, so many food relief programs, hospitals, things like this, but within that is implemented this spiritual culture. So, Hare Krishna. So I think we'll read another text. Would someone like to read text number 2, please? Page 73. I'll read the translation. The Supreme Person Bhagavan said, "My dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the progressive values of life. They do not lead to higher planets, but to infamy." Please read the first paragraph for the purport.
Krishna and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are identical. Therefore, Lord Krishna is referred to as Bhagavan throughout the Gita. Bhagavan is the ultimate in the absolute truth. Absolute truth is realized in 3 phases of understanding, namely Brahman, or the impersonal, all-pervasive spirit, Paramatma, or the localized aspect of the Supreme within the heart of all living entities, and Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, this conception of the absolute truth is explained thus.
Varanti tattvavidas tattvam yajganam avyayan Brahmetmi paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. Page 73.
The absolute truth is realized in 3 phases of understanding by the knower of the absolute truth, and all of them are identical. Such phases of the absolute truth are expressed as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. These 3 divine aspects can be explained by the example of the sun, which also has 3 different aspects, namely the sunshine, the sun's surface, and the sun planet itself. One who studies the sunshine only is the preliminary student. One who understands the sun's surface is further advanced, and one who can enter into the sun planet is the highest. Ordinary students who are satisfied by simply understanding the sunshine, its universal pervasiveness, and the glaring effulgence of its impersonal nature, may be compared to those who can realize only the Brahman feature of the absolute truth. The student who has advanced still further can know the sun disk, which is compared to the knowledge of the Paramatma feature of the absolute truth. And the student who can enter into the heart of the sun planet is compared to those who realize the personal features of the supreme absolute truth. Therefore, the bhaktas, or the transcendentalists who have realized the Bhagavan feature of the absolute truth, are the topmost transcendentalists. Although all students who are engaged in the study of the absolute truth are engaged in the same subject matter. The sunshine, the sun disk, and the inner affairs of the sun planet cannot be separated from one another, and yet the students of the three different phases are not in the same category.
The Sanskrit word Bhagavan is explained by the great authority Parashara Muni, the father of Vyasadeva, the Supreme Personality who possesses all riches, all strength, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation is called Bhagavan. There are many persons who are very rich, very powerful, very beautiful, very famous, very learned, and very much detached. But no one can claim that he possesses all riches, all strength, etc. entirely. Only Krishna can claim this because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No living entity, including Brahma, Lord Shiva, or Narayan, can possess opulences as fully as Krishna. Therefore, it is concluded in the Brahma Samhita by Lord Brahma himself that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one is equal to or above him. He is the primeval Lord, or Bhagavan, known as Govinda, and he is the supreme cause of all causes. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. There are many personalities possessing the qualities of Bhagavan, but Krishna is the supreme because none can excel him. Shri Shri Gauritai Ki Jai. He is the Supreme Person, and his body is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. He is the primeval Lord Govinda and the cause of all causes. Brahma Samhita 5.1. Would you like to read the next paragraph?
In the Bhagavatam, also there is a list of many incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Krishna is described as the original personality of Godhead, from whom many, many incarnations and personalities of Godhead expand. Ite kangsha kalapumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Svayam Injari Yakulam Lokam Mridyanti Yuge Yuge. All the lists of the incarnations of Godhead submitted herewith are either plenary expansions or parts of the plenary expansions of the Supreme Godhead. But Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Therefore, Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, the source of both the Supersoul and the impersonal Brahman.
Someone else want to read another paragraph?
Yeah. In the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Arjuna's lamentation for his kinsman is certainly unbecoming. And therefore, Krishna expressed his surprise with the word kutas, wherefrom such unmanly sentiments were never expected from a person belonging to the civilized class of men known as Aryans. Sorry if I say it wrong.
No, it was good.
Okay. The word Aryan is applicable to persons who know the value of life and have a civilization based on spiritual realization. Persons who are led by the material conception of life do not know that the aim of life is realization of the absolute truth, Vishnu or Bhagavan, and they are captivated by the external features of the material world, and therefore they do not know what liberation is. Persons who have no knowledge of liberation from material bondage are called non-Aryans. Although Arjuna was a
Kshatriya.
Satriya, he was deviating from his prescribed duties by declining to fight. This act of cowardice is described as befitting the non-Aryans. Such deviation from duty does not help one in the progress of spiritual life, nor does it even give one the opportunity to become famous in this world. Lord Krishna did not approve of the so-called compassion of Arjuna for his kinsman.
Text number 3. Brian.
O son of Pritha, do not yield to this degrading impotence. It does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of the enemy. Purport. Arjuna was addressed as the son of Pritha, who happened to be the sister of Krishna's father, Vasudeva. Therefore, Arjuna had a blood relationship with Krishna. If the son of a Kshatriya declines to fight, he is a Kshatriya in name only, and if the son of a Brahmana acts impiously, he is a Brahmana in name only. Such Kshatriyas and Brahmanas are unworthy sons of their fathers. Therefore, Krishna did not want Arjuna to become an unworthy son of a Kshatriya. Arjuna was the most intimate friend of Krishna, and Krishna was directly guiding him on the chariot. But in spite of all these credits, if Arjuna abandoned the battle, he would be committing an infamous act. Therefore, Krishna said that such an attitude in Arjuna did not fit his personality. Arjuna might argue that he would give up the battle on the grounds of his magnanimous attitude for the most respectable Bhishma and his relatives, but Krishna considered that sort of magnanimity not approved by authority. Therefore, such magnanimity, or so-called non-violence, should be given up by persons like Arjuna under the direct guidance of Krishna.
Arjuna said, O killer of Madhu Krishna, how can I counterattack with arrows in battle men like Bhishma and Drona, who are worthy of my worship? Purport. Respectable superiors like Bhishma, the grandfather, and Dronacharya, the teacher, are always worshipable. Even if they attack, they should not be counterattacked. It is general etiquette that superiors are not to be offered even a verbal fight. Even if they are sometimes harsh in behavior, they should not be harshly treated. Then how is it possible for Arjuna to counterattack them? Would Krishna ever attack his own grandfather, Ugrasena, or his teacher, Sandipani Muni? These were some of the arguments by Arjuna to Krishna. So Arjuna he's not holding back his arguments towards Krishna. So he's letting all of his doubts come out. So this is required for the rapid progress in spiritual life, is that one reveals his doubts to somebody he trusts who is advanced on the path of self-realization. In that way, then, he can question to his satisfaction and get answers that are to his satisfaction. If somebody really has knowledge, really has realization of Krishna, of the absolute truth, then we should be able to question them until our doubts are removed. And the mercy of these great souls are that if we are sincere in our questioning and we're sincere in our endeavors and practice, then they'll give us that time and mercy. But we don't want to just have some, just doubt for the sake of doubting, and always just doubting, always asking the same questions over and over again. If we're doing that, then we're not actually applying what knowledge is being given to reveal our doubts. So the solution is just to apply, to meditate, to think about what the advice is, what the advice has been given. It's generally said that if you ask for advice from somebody, then you should carry out that advice. Otherwise, why ask for the advice? It's actually a waste of energy for the person to give instructions if you're not willing to follow it. But Arjuna, he's actually, we'll see in a couple of verses, that he's actually willing to submit and accept the advice. So then we see that he becomes free from the illusion that he was, brought under for this pastime. So this is the point that I was mentioning earlier, that he's seeing these great personalities like his grandfather and teacher, and he's feeling like, what do I do? How can I attack these personalities? How can I do this? So we may also feel like this in our lives, that, how can we continue our spiritual path while we're so-called or seemingly neglecting the other people that were we had some previous relationship with, or maybe we do have it now, family, friends, society, nation. How can we just give up these things? So actually the real understanding is that if we satisfy, if we rise ourselves in spiritual consciousness, then that is the best thing that we can do for everybody else. And if we connect ourselves with Krishna, who is the father of all beings, and he's the well-wisher of all beings, then surely by pleasing Krishna, then everybody else will be surely pleased, especially those that are dear to us, right? It's said that if you love me, love my dog. So the man has great affection for his dog, and he sees his dog just like, he may treat it even better than himself, So if you satisfy, if you satisfy the dog, then you can satisfy the master, and vice versa. And and so similarly in this way, if we satisfy Krishna, then he'll be willing to help those who are dear to us. He'll be willing to satisfy that dog also, as well as the man. We see this actually. There's some evidences of this in the lives of devotees that are practicing seriously, and their family are greatly benefited by that. Their friends are benefited by that, everything. So this is the real understanding we can have, to see that if I liberate myself, if I get onto that, take that hand and get pulled onto that rescue boat, then I'm free and I can lend some hands to save the man and not just the body or the dress of the persons. And this is what is really needed in this world, actually, is people that have this understanding and realization that they're a soul and not the body. Because that's where the real happiness will be, is knowing this and experiencing this. Because the soul is Satchit Ananda. It's full of bliss, full of knowledge, and full of, it's eternal. So everybody is striving to experience these things. Nobody wants to experience an end of life. That is the greatest fear for the conditioned soul. One may think, well, I'm not afraid of death, right? But obviously we are, if we're doing so many things so many little things. And generally speaking, when I remember I was thinking this too, like, okay, yeah, I'm ready for death. And then, I think it was yesterday, this spider crawled on me. I was explaining this last night. This spider crawled on me, and I instantly had this reaction like, oh my God. And I just flicked it off me like super quick. So then I realized, okay, yeah, I still have some attachments to this body. But of course, if we're developing ourselves spiritually, then we naturally will protect this body because it's our instrument for progress on the path of spiritual life. But anyways, it was a nice indication. At least I experienced like attachments, to this body and to living and things. So this is good. With the right knowledge, we can experience our eternality. Whereas in this world, just by our gross senses and our trying to find pleasure through these senses, or trying to understand truth through these senses, this pratyaksha, we're not going to satisfy this. We have to get realization of our eternal nature by following the spiritual guidance of Krishna, applying these teachings. And similarly, we want knowledge. Knowledge is very attractive. We want knowledge of the self. It's interesting who we are, right? It's interesting to know more about who we are. We're always learning things more and more each day. Life itself is a continuum of lessons to be learned about ourselves and growing towards some wisdom. And so, if we have the right knowledge from the right source, then we can really see things clearly. And then bliss, everybody's looking for happiness. We understand this. Why are people going on the weekends to bars, to casinos, to visit their family, their friends, everything, for this sort of rasa, this relationship or this taste, this mellow they get from these experiences. But the bhakti rasa is eternal. That's the difference. That's the beauty of it, is that the bhakti rasa, you get to experience the bliss of spiritual life, the happiness that comes from a deeper state than just this material existence. So, and we can get that many ways, but the main easiest way is by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. As Lord Chaitanya says in his Shastastikam, his prayer, Chaito Darpana Marjanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam. This is the bliss. It's an ocean of bliss. And by chanting, then we get the taste or the nectar which we're always been hankering for. Like last night was, I don't know about everybody else, most of us were there, but I was really tasting this nectar that I've always been hankering for with Sri Dam's Kirtan. So, yeah. Were you experiencing some bliss last night, Jeff? I think we all were. We were just in this ocean. Actually, bhakti is sometimes it's characterized, these blissful states, as waves of bliss. So, and each wave or waves, they have different rasa to it, different taste to it. So the nature of spiritual life is you're always getting hit with waves of bliss. So that's something to look forward to when we're in this stage of samadhi, this fixed absorption in the Supreme. So, are there any comments or questions or reflections? Yes, Hasmukh, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji, can you define the bhakti in its deeper state?
Bhakti?
In its very deeper state, yes.
In a deeper state. Can you explain it a little more what you're asking, specifically?
Well, define the bhakti in its very deeper state, where we are always ecstatic and completely, totally, unconditionally surrendered. Total, complete and unconditional surrender to Krishna.
Yeah, that's the deepest state.
And Radharani. Is there any, if you can, expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, it's a...
Purity, humility, love,
It's not that we can become enlightened, at once, although it is possible to become completely purified in 1 second. But generally, it requires a process, a path, a journey through life, through our existence in the material world, since somehow or other we're here, and we're inhabiting a body. Are we having RT now? Okay. We're inhabiting a body, so it's best to make the use of to utilize, what's this phrase? Best use of a bad bargain. So we'll utilize this body for its ultimate purpose, which is to develop ourselves in spiritual consciousness and Krishna consciousness. So, although we are identifying with the body in material forms, bodily designations, as we progress in this path, then our attachments to these things gradually decrease. So there's 9 stages of bhakti that are given. And in the higher stages, after one is freed from the upadhis, these false designations, these anarthas, then he can experience attachment to Krishna. He can experience taste of the holy name. When he chants, he actually experiences spiritual experiences. He experiences spiritual life. And then bhava, intensified emotions towards Krishna, spontaneous emotions. And then prema, which is pure love, which is the highest state of consciousness, which is unalloyed devotion and love, selfless surrender to Krishna. So these are stages, so it requires to move through these stages. And anartha nivritti is the difficult stage. It's where we're clearing away, we're cleansing the mirror of the mind, cleansing the dust. And there's a lot there because we've been here for so long in the material world. So it requires toleration of our nonsense that we have in our mind and in our hearts. And so if we somehow or other, as one of my mentors says, if we just, put our head down and plug away, then we'll get into these higher states, because when we're going through this anartha nivritti, we're getting hit at all angles by our anarthas. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktivedanta ki jai, Hare Krishna. So we're going to have arti now.